Hey, what's up everyone? This is Snackbox. Hope you all had a great day so far. In this video, I want to give you a little guideline on what to focus on for the new Chimera Clan boss, what is really important, and this really helped me, so I want to share this with you. Before we start, make sure to hit that subscribe and like button, and now let's get back to the video. So, let's take a look at this guide I created. We will talk about team building, ideas for team setups, your main goals. What should be your main goal? We will go like over the heads. What do you need for each head? What gear is the best gear you can put your champions in? What stats do you need for each difficulty? And how much damage do you need to do for each top chest? So let's start with the team building. So the team building is really important. What do we need for the Chimera Clan boss? What is the most important thing? What is not so important? And what is nice to have, right? So the first thing you need to have is a reviver, and you need heal. Without a reviver and heal, your champions will just die, your team will wipe, you won't make it to the end of the 65 turns, which should be your goal. And we will talk about your main goals in the next chapter. So that's the first thing. You need a reviver and heal. The next important thing is, of course, damage, right? First, we take care of survivability, then we need damage. So what is the best damage source in the game? It's enemy max HP damage. There are few options out there. For example, Newt, Acrisia, Marius. Those are probably the most used max HP damage champions for the Chimera right now. Then the next thing that's really important is to maintain a decreased speed debuff on the boss and have turn meter increase in your team. Now, turn meter increase can come from, a reviver, can come from a damage dealer, can come from a debuffer. It can come from many sources, and how you manage to get that is up to you. There are many options. Now, the next things are nice to have. So, to be able to control the ram head, you need fear and true fear. To be able to control the viper form, you need block active skills. Then, of course, you want to decrease defense and weaken to improve your damage output and increase your damage output, your max damage, because that's one of the most important things in here. We want to maximize our damage, and there's no better way to do so than to have decreased defense and weaken. It's raw damage increase, and that's what we want. And then, of course, we want block buffs or a buff strip for the ultimate form, because the Chimera Clan boss can put increased speed on himself, and we want to avoid that. So that's like the basic guideline for your for building a team for the Chimera Clan boss, and this should cover like the most important things. And then once you have these things implemented in your team, you can think about other things. Considering you need all of these effects in your team, you really need to choose champions that can do multiple things. That can, for example, revive, heal, and put debuffs, or your enemy max HP nuker should have debuffs as well, or buffs, and your debuffers should also have buffs, for example. That really helps to cover all the things you need. So try to use champions that have multiple roles in one, So that's kind of like the key to maximize your Chimera performance. Now, there are definitely options, instead of enemy max HP damage nukers, you can use, for example, a Ninja or a Toshiro. They will perform really good as well. You don't necessarily need a max HP damage champion, but it will be easier for you to get, your damage output that you need. So let's talk about the first team setup. Pretty straightforward. This is probably the most common team setup out there that's being used. So you need one reviver, two DPS that can be an enemy max HP nuker or somebody like Ninja, for example, and then two buffers, right? So pretty straightforward, nothing complicated. The next team setup is actually what I used because I haven't built a second DPS champion for Chimera yet, but I will definitely work on that. And this kind of like replaces one of your DPS champions with a reset champion like Yumeko or Kaimar. You can also use any of the epics that can reset cooldowns. So there's definitely some options out there that can fulfill this role. And you basically just reset your DPS so he can use his best damage skill again and cycle it back. So this is one option that you can use. And then if you don't have a reset champion and you don't have a second DPS champion, you can definitely go for one reviver, one DPS, and then three debuffers or buffers. That way you can complete more trials, but it will be really hard to achieve those high damage thresholds for the higher difficulties. But for lower stages, this will definitely work 100%. Okay, so these are like the three team types that I've seen so far that are most common. And now let's get to your goals. Like what is your main goal in the Chimera? Of course, you want to do maximum amount of damage. You want to one key the top chest, right? On whatever difficulty you're currently at, and that's your main goal, right? How do you achieve that? You want to take as many turns as possible, right? This is the most important thing because the fight's going to be over after the Chimera took 65 turns. That means in that period of time, you want to take as many turns as possible. Like your ultimate goal is, of course, to hit the 1500 turn limit, right? Which is very hard to achieve. On the lower stages, it's achievable, but on the harder stages, I don't know if anybody did it yet, but that should be your like one of your main goals. And then of course you want to control the boss, each head, and these are the three most important things you want to focus on. And then of course you have the Chimera Clash, but in order to get more points for the Chimera Clash, you gotta focus on your damage, right? And on your control and the other important things. So it's kind of linked together, but I wouldn't pay too much attention to the Clash. Also, the trials are kind of a secondary focus because you really want to get your team set up ready to cover all these areas. And then once you covered all the most important things here, you can focus on trials. How can you improve your team to complete more trials? That will also give you more rewards, but it shouldn't be your main focus because at first you want to make sure you cover all these important buffs and debuffs to control the Chimera, to be, able to take enough turns to be able to do maximum damage. That's the most important thing because the trials will improve your clash points, of course, and your multiplier for clash points. But if you do less damage, but you get more trials, it's kind of like not beneficial, right? If you do more damage and have less trials, you will get more clash points. So you gotta find a balance how you're gonna get that one key chest and then complete as many trials as possible, or like more than a one key top chest damage, like you just gotta find the balance. And then of course you want to take advantage of the affinity. Right now we had, or this week we had the force affinity for all the heads except the ultimate form is always void, and the other heads like lion, ram, and viper always change their affinity each rotation. So that's also a really important thing you can consider. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the ram head. There are a couple things you need to be aware of. For example, once the Chimera swaps from the ultimate form to the ram form, your champion with the lowest crit damage will get attacked by the ram. And you can't avoid that. It's going to happen always when he switches to the ram form. And he's going to attack that champion with the lowest crit damage. And if he does 20% of his HP as damage or more, he will repeat his attack until the champion is dead. So how do you avoid to kill your reviver that way? You have to give him more crit damage than the lowest crit damage. Have somebody else be your lowest crit damage, like one of your debuffers, buffers. Of course, you don't want to have your DPS having your lowest crit damage. So that way you avoid to get your reviver killed, and you kind of like sacrifice one of the other champions and then you just revive that one back, right? So another way to avoid uh, to get your champion killed by that dual target is to have a strong affinity and to get a weak hit, right? For example, we had force affinity now. Now, if you would use, for example, a Nekmothar, and he would get a weak hit, the ram head would stop the attack, and then your champion would survive without a problem. Now, the ram head also reflects damage. That can be really problematic if you try to um, hit them with enemy max HP skills, and that kills your own champions. So you kind of want to avoid to have decreased defense and weaken on the ram head, because then you can actually out heal the reflected damage with, for example, a leech on the ram head or the lifesteal mastery. So that's one way to prevent the death of your DPS champions. Also, you should consider to use fear and true fear for the ram head, because that way he's gonna be controlled and not gonna do that much to your team, and also you will complete one of the trials. Now the next head is the lion head. So the way it works though is you're gonna have the ultimate form first, then he's gonna switch to the ram head, then he's gonna go back to the ultimate form, then he's gonna go to the lion form, go back to the ultimate form, go to the viper head, and then it's gonna cycle again, right? It's gonna repeat. So the lion head is probably one of the easier ones to face, at least from my experience. All I had to do is have block debuffs or cleanse on my team to make sure he's not debuffing. Because what he does is he will put like a decreased defense and weaken on one of your champions and then try to spread the debuff. But if you have block debuffs, he can't do that. So he's technically just countered by a block debuffs buff. There's nothing more to say about this head. This is really, not that dangerous if you have block debuffs. Now, the next head is the Viper head, and this one is actually a little bit trickier because before he swaps from the ultimate form to the Viper form, you don't want to have any unprotected buffs on your champions, because the Viper form is going to steal your buffs. And the only way to prevent that is either you're waiting with your buffs before he swaps to that form, or you have protected buffs. It's a little bit risky if you place buffs and hope for them to be protected, because he can, there's a slight chance that the buff won't be protected and then he will just steal the buff. And for example, if it's a block debuff and you can't control him after that, it's a little bit, problematic to come back from that. If you don't have a buff strip, for example. But yeah, what the Viper head does when he first gets a turn, he's gonna try to steal your buffs and then put poisons on your team. Now, of course, a way to avoid that is to have block debuffs, but they need to be protected. And then another way to deal with that is a cleanse, of course. And you also want to, maintain a nice amount of heal, because he's actually doing damage because he's gonna place poisons before your champions will take a turn. If you want to control him, you need a block active skills debuff on him. That way he won't use his skill where he steals your buffs or activates poisons. So this is also really, really helpful for this head. And I would definitely recommend you to bring that debuff which is also one of the trials for this head. The next thing I want to talk about is what gear is, or like what gear sets are the best for this clan boss. And in my opinion, it's everything that reduces your cooldowns or gives you extra turns. So, for example, Relentless just got a massive increase of value because of this clan boss. It was always really good, but now it's just more important because I feel like a relentless set, a good relentless set on your nuker will push your damage so much, or your turn meter increaser, or like any champion in your team can have relentless and it will improve your damage. So if you build your champions with a relentless set and a 4-piece merciless set, this is probably the best way to do it because you will take extra turns, and then you also have a chance of decreasing your cooldowns every time you take extra turns, right? So on top of that, you also get damage bonuses from the merciless set, right? But if you don't have, if you can't come up with a, with a four piece merciless set paired with a relentless set, you can also use impulse, which kind of has the same effect, also gives you more speed. Reflex is also really good, reduces your cooldowns. And then, of course, if you have a 9-piece set for one of your debuffers, for example, Lydia, which is really, really good for this clan boss. She can fear, block active skill, block buffs, decrease defense, weaken, uh, increase speed, strengthen. So she does a lot of things. And if you give her Feral, a 9-piece Feral set, it will also increase your damage output. And then, of course, you want to have your champions that just buff in protection sets because you don't want the Chimera to strip your buffs, which the boss does in the ultimate form and in the Viper form. So that's one thing you want to avoid. And the best way to do so is to have your buffer in a protection set. Now, what stats do we actually need? These are the accuracy requirements for each difficulty. On easy, you need not more than 175 accuracy, and then for ultra nightmare, you need a good amount of accuracy, 475. The resistances are actually varying from head to head. So the Ram head is actually the one with the highest resistance, and then the Viper head is the one with the highest accuracy. So the speeds here are actually the speeds from the Chimera. So that's just a little, guideline. Your champions don't need to match these speeds. Of course, it will definitely help because your goal is to outspeed the Chimera as much as possible. But for example, your nukers don't have to match these speeds, right? But it definitely helps if your champion that increases your turn meter, for example, would be as fast as possible. So as you can see, for easy, the Chimera sits at 145 speed, and at Ultra Nightmare, the Chimera boss sits at 305. Now, resistance wise, you need a good amount of resistance to be able to resist the Viper Head. You need 555 plus accuracy, resistance. Sorry, that's just the minimum for Ultra Nightmare, right? And then 255 for easy. So this is definitely a good guideline, which should give you an idea of what you need stat-wise for this boss. And then this are the damages you need to aim for. For easy, you need not more than 4.15 million damage. This should be, doable for everybody. Normal, 9.75 million damage. For hard, you need 20.5 million damage. Brutal, 36 million damage. Nightmare, 84 million damage. And Ultra Nightmare, 112.5 million damage, which is actually a good amount of damage you need to do here. But I think with two decent DPS champions, this is very achievable. Now, one thing I hope they're going to introduce are area bonuses for this clan boss, which would really help to hit those stats that you need and just improve our damage output. I'm almost 100% certain they're going to implement that, but who knows when. And yeah, this is pretty much all I got for you now. I will definitely do a tier list of champions um, that are performing very well in the new Chimera Clan boss for revivers, DPS, reset champions, and of course debuffers and buffers in general. And yeah, so keep an eye out on that and hope you enjoyed. I hope this will help you. And thank you for watching. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment in the section below. Don't forget to subscribe and like. And with that being said, see you in the next video.